So how can one focus on the past without getting bogged down by, anger and recrimination and depression and despair? So there's a story that's told in Masechet Brachot in Brachos about Rav Yossi, and he's praying in a ruin, and Eliyahu Hanavi, Elijah the prophet, comes to him and says, "Dude, I'm going to stand here and wait till you're finished praying, but you're definitely praying in the wrong place." So Rav Yossi finishes, and Eliyahu Hanavi says, "You really shouldn't pray in a ruin." The poskim, the people who decide what the Jewish law is, they derive out of this story that you shouldn't pray in a ruin. And then he goes on and he says, you should pray tefillah b'derech. You should pray while you're traveling. And Rav Yossi says, I would do that, but I'm afraid of listim, of thieves on the road, or people are going to stop me on my way. So Leonavi says, okay, so that means you can pray a shorter version. The ramifications of this in Jewish law are interesting. But it's not just, so the story can be read like that, or the story can be read a little bit differently. The story is Rav Yossi sees Navi, and he's praying. Where is he praying? He's praying in the ruins of the Beit HaMikdash. He was the second generation after Rabbi Akiva. All of his students had been killed, and there was also the Chorban. They lived after the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. So they're praying. He's praying in this ruin of the temple. So Eliyahu Navi says, you really shouldn't pray there. And then he says, go along your way and say the short version. So you really shouldn't pray there means, Eliyahu Navi, is you cannot live exclusively in the past. And there's a tendency after tragedy, after Chorban, after Shoah, after Holocaust, there are people who live in the past. And Judaism, through no fault of Jews, kind of, became a religion that got kind of paralyzed after the Holocaust. And I think we're still in that moment. Don't focus too much on that. And, to the answer, well, you can do it on the way. You do it on the way through history. And it's true that there will be moments that you get stopped. But even then, the prayer should be bakatsara, short, the short version. The Ein Yaakov is based on it. He's one of the commentators in the Medrash, says that when you're living through history, there will be times in which there are obstacles, but you have to keep on going forward. Keep your prayer short. If you start to dwell on the injustices that we've suffered, we'll never get over it. So that's, in a way, that's Jewish leadership and Jewish teaching, Jewish pedagogy. Don't fixate on the past. We're at an inflection point in Jewish history now. Maybe we can say that it's a post-Holocaust moment, if we can, meaning we're going to get out of that dynamic that is kind of starting really to destroy the Jewish people, between people who claim to be arguing for Jewish tradition and people who claim to be arguing for Jewish ethics, left and right. This sense that the arguments that we've always had that have kept us together are turning into arguments that are sources for indignation and self-righteousness. We're suffering more. It's really unlike Jews to do that, right? In America, that's identity politics. But the fact that Jews are doing this, competing with each other about suffering, that's not a good sign. Because Eliyahu Navi, and we associate Elijah the prophet with messianic days, he's coming and saying, in the moment, you have to keep on moving. And not only prayer and contemplation, but action. We never forget the Beit HaMikdash. He's not saying that, right? But you go forward. Shabbat Shalom.